Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to take a look at how to create the health bar and the stamina bar from Diablo 4. So let's get into it. To start with our health bar or even our stamina bar, we need that material that needs to be made in a circular format so it can actually fill up from the bottom to top. To do that, let's go into our material folder and we're going to right click and create material. And create material. We're going to call this stat orb underscore material. We're going to create this material and we're going to use it for both stamina and health. One will be green, the other one will be, one will be red and the other one will be blue. To make the material, first things first, we need to go in here and make this into a user interface. And we're going to make this into a translucent material. First thing we need is a circle. So if you search for radial gradient exponential, this actually creates a circle based off of two variables, which you can use to control this. One is the radius and the other one's the density. We're going to do the density first. So we're going to right click and say scalar parameter and name this density. Okay. And we can set our density to like a 50 is a good number that I've previously tested with. That makes it nice and sharp edges and such. You can actually add a radius to it as well, but because we already got our circle, we're not going to mess with the radius. So we have our density, and then now we need to make this red and also go from the bottom to top. Just like how we did our cooldown material, we're going to also do a texture coordinate option here. So if I were to search for texture coordinate, from bottom to top is the y-axis and left to right is the x-axis. So we want to do a component mask to get the y-axis because we're going from bottom to top. And when you do a component mask, R is the x-axis and G is the y-axis. So we're going to just select the G and we're just going to get the whole thing. So we're going to now create a new scalar parameter, and this is the one that we're going to be editing using our blueprints when the health goes up and down or stamina goes up and down. We're going to name this fill level. And the default value of this fill level, we'll leave it at, we'll make it at 1. And we want to have like a smooth transition between 0 to 1. So we're going to search something called the lerp, and that'll give you a linear interpolate node. And you can take this fill value and then connect it to the alpha. So it actually can lerp between 0 to 1 much more smoother. If we were to take this, and now we're going to subtract. So 1 is the fill level, so that's on the very top. And then when it comes to 0.5, we want to take this y-axis and then subtract it by 0.5. So we're going to connect that here. Whatever our fill level is, we're going to go up the y-axis and go down the y-axis. And apply. And now we can take this, before we connect it to the multiplier, we can actually take this and multiply it. And let's take this and plug it in the bottom, radial exponential on the top. And now if I were to plug it into the final color and click on apply, the preview is gone. That's because the fill level is currently set to 1. And if I set it to 0, then it's going to be at the top. Right now it's set to having 0 on the top, y at the bottom, and we want to reverse this. To inverse this, it's pretty straightforward. You just need to drag off of this lerp and search for 1 minus. So this just puts it in reverse. And then now if you were to do it this way, apply. Again, the previous gone because our fill level is now set to 0. And if I set it to 1, you got your circle. So if I set it to 0.5, you got half a circle. And this is exactly what we want. Now, what we also want to do is we want to add the color to it. So first thing I'm going to do is a constant 3 vector. And then I want to make this a nice dark red. So I can make this R into 1, so that'll give me all the reds, and then make it nice and dark like that. And if I were to take this, and I'm going to go ahead and say multiply, and then take the multiply of the circle, and then plug it into the final color, I got myself a red circle. We can actually use this. It works nice, and it does the purpose, it does the job, but we're going to customize it a little bit more, right? And To do that, we're going to actually give it a little bit of texture. So because in Diablo's ability tree, you notice that the actual health bar is sort of a blood, has a blood feature to it. So I actually downloaded this texture and I'm going to import it in. I'm just going to drag it and drop it in here. So that's the blood texture that we're going to use. This actually has a little bit of nice texture to it and some lighting to it. And then this is what we're going to add to our material. To do that, it's pretty straightforward. You just need to search for a texture sample. And because I've already had the blood selected, it created a texture sample with that blood in it. And now I need to take this RGB and as many of you have guessed it, you just got to multiply. Multiply our color with the material and then take that output into this multiply and you will notice immediately we got ourselves a nice texture there. This actually looks very good, but there's one more problem that I don't like about this material. It's the fact that at the very top you can see there is a little fading that's happening. That's because the radial gradient exponential tries to make a smooth circle because we're going from the bottom to top. The top is actually trying to smooth out much. So we want to eliminate that. To eliminate that, there's many different options to do it. I do it the simplest way. If I drag off of this multiply where we're creating the radiant gradient and also adding the bottom to top axis control, we can search for something called the step. And I'm going to connect the step, so the multiply, to the X value. And I'm going to hold Alt and click on the Y to release it. And I'm going to make this into 0.01 to have a nice little sharp curve. And if I drag this and multiply, you'll notice that it gets really nice and sharp. So there's no more of that fading effect to it. And that's all we need to do to make our circular material. And I will do the same thing with the stamina and make it blue. All I have to do is duplicate this material and also change the color in our texture that we just brought in. And we should be able to make it into a stamina. So to do that, first let's go into the imports. And this blood, we're going to go ahead and duplicate this texture and name it stamina. And go into this texture and you can actually edit the hue. I believe the dark blue that I want is about 240, 245. It's more purplish, so we'll leave it at 240. Save it. And you can close this. And we're going to go back to our materials and right click and duplicate this material and name this Stamina ORB underscore matte. I went ahead and renamed this as health orb underscore matte because we don't need to make it into a stat orb anymore. So this one's going to be health and this one's going to be stamina. And in here, we're only going to change two things. One, we're going to update this texture. We're going to go back to our imports, select our blue texture, and we're going to click on this arrow to make it blue. And this, we're going to, again, make this nice dark blue here. And we got ourselves our stamina as well. And the stamina, everything should be working fine because we just duplicated it. So if I make 0.5, it's half of the circle and such. One last thing that you need to do before you save off your stamina material or your health orb is the opacity. Because we have the material as translucent and this is still a square that we made it into a circle, there's still a invisible square that you don't see, but if you start using it in your user interface, that square will actually show as a black material in the back. Because Unreal looks at anything that is not translucent, and if it is present, it's going to default it to opaque, and opaque is going to make it look black. So to fix that, we just need to drag the step and connect it to opacity. This is the step that comes from the radial gradient. And same thing here, drag the step and connect it into the opacity. Now that we have our health material created, we're going to go ahead and add that to our player HUD here. Now we're going to create a separate overlay to control that. Add it to our canvas panel. And we're going to move this overlay over to our bottom middle, of course, and do that here. So the overlay comes over here, and we want to put it somewhere where it mimics the entire orb. So we're going to go ahead and size this up roughly for now, and we're going to change the size as we get more and more into this. That looks good. Now inside of here, we're going to go ahead and add a size box so we can size things up. Oh, let's put that inside here and fill the size box up. Inside of the size box, we're also going to have an image. I have generated a ring image that I could use. And if I can actually drag that in here, so this is the ring. And what I could do is we can, in the image, we can select that ring and that'll give us an idea of how big we want to have our health bar to be set up. Now, because we have the size box, we can always update the height and the width, center it here, and we can actually make that into, let's say, 300 by 300. And then we're going to take our overlay and then just make it much bigger. So it would fit the screen here. Oh. Right. Just like that. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to take the anchors. Very important that we anchor our material down. And we're going to drop our anchor right here. Now in game, it looks like that, which looks pretty good. And we're going to go ahead and actually take the size box and fill it up in there. And that is actually skewed a little bit, isn't it? Yeah. So we're going to raise our size box more and make it a tiny bit smaller. We don't want it to be too big to take up so much of the space. And update the anchors. That looks pretty good. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. But first, let's go ahead and do all of the material that needs to go inside of it. And then we can just copy and paste that over to the other side. So now that we have our image inside, we're going to add another size box. And this would be our health. So we're going to add another image inside of it. And this would be centered. Oh, sorry. We need to center the size box and then fill it because we filled out the other size box as well. So we want this to be filled. And the image will be filled out as well. And we're going to edit the image after. We're going to create our material instance. We're going to select our material instance of the health orb and we're going to set it here. And it will set up as such. Now, we don't really see the circle behind because the size box is rather large. So we're going to do a center and we're going to override it until we get our height that we need. Okay, so after messing with it a little bit, what I have done is I've taken the image with the health orb and I put it on the top so it's in the back end. And then the ring on the outer end. So we can actually rename this to the ring. Rename this to the health. So, and then I have actually updated the size box for the health. I set it to 194.52 and just make it 190.52. And then also this one's a 199.4. And for the ring, I made it into 275 by 275 in the center, both of them. Even the health is actually a center as well. And the actual image, I set this one to 390.6. Again, it took a little bit of trial and error. And by 1,000. And also for the ring image, I set it for 720 by 720. Again, stretched out all the way inside of the size box. And in game, it looks like that. This looks very decent. And it's very close resembling to what we have in the Diablo game. And one last thing that I'm going to do here is to add another size box inside of this. And this would hold a material that would mimic a glass orb. So I'm going to name this as a glass, and inside of it, again another image. It has no functionality, it's just more of a cosmetic thing. So I'm going to select the glass, and I'm going to go ahead and center it. And also, just like the ring, I'm going to make this into width and height override by 275 by 275. And the glass image, inside of our imports, I'm going to bring in another image now. There it is. And I'm going to select this bubbles in here. It's rather large. We can actually shrink this down, actually center this. Let it be at 1380 by 1380, that's fine. We're going to take our glass here and we're going to shrink this until we get to covering the whole thing up. Compile. And then I'm going to take the glass image. It's too much. It's hiding all the red. I'm going to make this a darker image. Let's say like something like this, and then reduce the opacity of it. So it gives it that glass effect. At the same time, it also shows us the health bar behind it. Now, how does this look inside a game? It looks like that. Now, if I were to go into my fill material and set the fill level to 0.5, apply, and if I go to my HUD, I see this. And if I play, I see that it's half full. I'm going to quickly create a background material. Go to material and call this black circle. And inside of here, make this into user interface. Opaque. Opaque is fine. We're going to just call a radial exponential. And then we're going to set our scalar parameter to width density and name this about 25. Set the value to 25. And then if I set this to my final color, actually, and then also do a constant 3 vector. That's our black. If I take this and then if I go and multiply this and then set this to our final color, apply, you would actually should have a circle. Actually, it's going to create a square. So we're going to make this translucent, and the opacity is going to be, we're going to do a step here as well, so it's nice and sharp, like we created earlier. Make this 0.01, and then make that into our opacity. You can't really see it, so if I change this to, let's say, red, you would actually see that's the circle. But we want it dark black, so we're going to say okay. And that's it. And then now we're going to go ahead and recreate this as a material instance, a black circle, save. We're going to do a size box, name this background. Inside of this, there will be an image. The image is going to be, again, the background, we're going to set it to center it. And the image will be centered as well. And the image will be that black material instance that we just created. And the size box, we're going to make it into 250. Too much. 185. 190 by 190. And we're going to take the image and we're going to say fill the size box with it. And we're going to take this all the way to the back. And now if I go and play it, you can see there's a black background there. And it looks very nice and clean. And we're going to now duplicate this whole thing into making our health stamina bar. So let's rename this to our health bar. And then we're going to go ahead and duplicate this, rename this into stamina bar. We're going to drag this over to the other side. Now the position of this matters. So as you can see, the offset right, actually offset bottom is the only thing that we need. We're going to copy that offset bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and paste it. And that will raise it up. And we're going to go into our health and rename this to stamina. And inside of here, the image, we're going to select our stamina instance that we created. Right? And now if I press play, we got our stamina and also our health orb, left and right. The positioning here, the health is a little far apart compared to stamina. Again, feel free to move this around until you get the perfect position that you like it to be. And one last thing that we're going to do is set up the actual functionality of these health bars. So if I go into my health and select the image, right, and I can make that into health_img. Same thing for stamina. Go into my stamina image and then name it stamina_img. We're going to do the same functionality like we did the previous time when we were setting up our cooldown function. So when the event gets constructed, when this player HUD gets constructed, we want to take the material, the dynamic material that we created, and we want to set a reference to it. So from the stamina image, we're going to say get brush. And the brush, we're going to say get dynamic material. And same thing for health as well. We're going to get the brush and get this dynamic material. Sorry. And we're going to promote this to a variable, call it stamina_mat. And then here, we're going to say promote the variable, and we're going to call it health_mat. With that done, I think this is a great spot for us to stop this part of the training video and move on to the next video. In the next video, we're actually going to enable the functionality to reduce the stamina and the health bar, and also be able to add health back. Once again, I appreciate everybody stopping by. If you had learned anything from this video, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel so you get notified as soon as the next tutorial series gets released. And liking the channel also helps the channel grow, reaching more and more developers who may need the assistance just like you. Once again, thank you very much, and I'm hoping to see you in our next part.